good morning, or afternoon, depending on where you're tuning in from. My name is Leslie, and I am from TribalWise. I'll be your moderator for today. So, Arctic IT and Microsoft have joined forces with TribalWise to present a four-part webinar series titled The Road to TribalNet. And we're kicking off that series today with our first webinar, when we're going to go over Microsoft 365 licensing. Joining us today are Justin Bryant and Bill Berkovic. Justin is Arctic IT's Solutions Architect for Microsoft 365 in Azure, and Bill serves as Microsoft Specialist for Modern Workplace Solutions. Both of our presenters have a deep knowledge of the topic today. Speaking of the topic, Microsoft licensing, this is the first time Arctic IT is delivering this content for our audience, and they have noticed that there's a big need for this type of conversation to be had, so that's why we decided to have it. And it looks like there's quite a few people on the call today, and so thank you all for your time and participation. Just a couple of things to kind of go over before we get started, just a couple housekeeping things. The session will be recorded for unlimited viewing. So if you head out to tribalwise.com, you'll find a copy of that underneath the webinars tab. If you want to watch the replay, or if you have someone else that you know that you think would find value in watching the replay, you can send them to tribalwise.com. And we will be sending a copy of the recording within 24 hours to all of the attendees. So you'll have that accessible. And then a copy of the slides will be shared as well. And then there's two handouts. We're going to try to pop those in the chat, but if I'm not able to get them in there, we're going to follow up with those for you as well. And lastly, if you have any type of questions, please feel free to drop those in the chat box. And then Bill and Justin are going to answer those towards the end of the conversation. So without further ado, I would like to pass it over to Justin.
Sure. Thanks, Leslie.
You're
let me go
welcome.
ahead and share my screen. Just let me know if you can see it.
Looks good.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, I want to thank everybody today for joining us and making the time to learn about Microsoft 365 licensing and what's right for your tribal organization. We're very excited to be able to be the first of 4 webinar sessions, which are part of the Road to TribalNet series. Again, my name is Justin Bryant. I'm a solutions architect for Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Azure with Arctic IT. I come to Arctic IT with over 10 years of on-premise and cloud infrastructure experience working with those large enterprise type environments. Joining me today is Bill Berkovic, and I'll let him introduce himself before we cover today's presentation agenda.
Hello, everyone. Bill Berkovic. I'm your modern workplace specialist with Microsoft, dedicated to the Native American tribes and Alaska Native corporations. I've now been at Microsoft going on 10 years and know actually several names that I've seen join up on the participants. So hello to everyone and the new names. Looking forward to talking to you at some point here soon.
Awesome. Well, for today's presentation, we're going to cover a couple different topics. First, we'll talk about what is Microsoft 365. And then we'll cover some of the built-in security features that are a part of that platform, such as SaaS versus on-premise, the Zero Trust platform, and Microsoft 365 Defender. We'll then cover how to choose the right subscription for your organization, which will break down the Microsoft 365 plans and our recommendations. We'll discuss the pricing and how to get started, and then we'll wrap things up with the Q&A session. But before we dive in, I did want to share somewhat of a Microsoft licensing feature breakdown or matrix, if you will. This is somewhat to show or demonstrate just the sheer volume of different features and functionalities that are available within the Microsoft licensing stack. As you'll notice here, going vertical, we have the Microsoft 365 Business Premium, Microsoft 365 E3, and then the Microsoft 365 E5 licenses. Going horizontally, we have the Office 365 licenses, the Enterprise Mobility Security Suite licenses, and then the features that come as a part of the Windows 10 E3 and E5 licenses. As you can see here, there's definitely a lot to take in, but you'll see that the Business Premium, E3, and E5 Microsoft licenses essentially encompass all of these features and functionalities. So again, there's a lot to take in. We're going to try to break this down a little bit later. But just wanted to show you all the features and functionalities that come as a part of these licenses. So Bill, what can you tell us about what Microsoft 365 is?
So Microsoft 365 is really the breakdown of 3 major components. It's the Office 365 side, where you're doing all of your typical business collaboration, whether that's email, working in SharePoint, working on shared docs, using Teams for internal collaboration, whether it's instant messaging or meetings, or using it on the external side to communicate with people that you may be federated with or hosting meetings. Okay. We then drop down into the enterprise mobility and security side of it. So now we're giving the organization the capability to lock down machines and allow people to connect securely without having to necessarily be on a VPN tunnel and having things slow down from that aspect. And then we've taken the Windows operating system license and turned that into a subscription. Okay, so now rather than having to worry about whether or not you've got the latest and greatest license as a subscription, all updates you're receiving those for the life that you've got that subscription constantly, and any of the new features that we're adding in there, which is really across the board. If you know, there's a couple of you that I've seen that, you know, we've been talking Office 365 for a long time. You can remember, you know, 5, 6, 8, 9 years ago, what came in an Office 365 suite was actually pretty small. And now, you know, it's hard to keep up at Microsoft, all of the roadmap items that we're constantly adding in. And, you know, when you're in those suites, you're getting those additional features throughout that enterprise agreement time without having to pay more money on those. So in fact, one of the first big price increases, and I say big, it's not really big, but is coming in March, where a lot of the suites are going to see additional things added into them that are going to be even more powerful for you and enable more of your users to collaborate and be more powerful throughout their workday. So here's kind of that high level overview. Okay. Some of the things to understand where our security gets really important is that it's built in, not bolted on. So a lot of the security products out there, to really build out, you have to extend things such as Active Directory into a third-party platform and other things. And that's not how it is within the Microsoft landscape. Okay, we've got the external threat protection, and I know marketing's made it fun, but there's Office 365 Defender, there's Defender for the endpoint, there's Azure Defender, there's Defender for identity. There's a lot, but the big thing here is that advanced threat protection and using multi-factor authentication, and then having Windows Defender running on your machine and enforcing that BitLocker encryption. And you've really minimized the impact that can happen to your organization. Okay. And if internal data leak prevention is important to you, DLP, the data loss prevention that's there, and Azure information protection that's built into the M365 suites is critical. Okay. From the device management side, you know, one of the big conversations that's come up a lot lately is everyone's getting tired of building laptops and having to send laptops out and updates. Mm-hmm. You know, with our device management, you've got Microsoft Intune there. You've got the Windows 10 credential guard, single sign-on, but one of the other big things is that deployment assistance. With Windows Autopilot, you get yourself out of that business. You build out how your machine should be built, the applications that should be for each of the security groups out there. And as you buy devices from your partners, they load those MAC addresses into your Autopilot portal, and then you just have the device shipped directly to that user that you've assigned it to. They log in and the machine builds out for them. Okay. So that's absolutely amazing stuff. Okay. So the overall thing to really take in is that consistent security configuration, and it's across not just our devices, but that's Mac OS, Android, and iOS devices as well. All right. You're going to want to upgrade. If you're still running Windows 7 out there or Windows 8.1, you definitely want to get to Windows 10. And I'm hearing that around October 1st, you might actually see Windows 11 available for downloading and testing out as well. Okay. And then with all of this, you get the 99.9% financial backed up time guarantee. So if our cloud's down and that's one of your considerations, there's outages that when you open up that ticket and report it, that you could get reimbursed for. Now, that doesn't happen a lot because the cloud only keeps getting more robust. The data centers that Microsoft is building, we are in a constant state of development. I can tell you just the one data center that's here in Virginia has doubled in the size that I've been here, to the point where Microsoft had to buy more property down there to build out further.
Yeah, I think that's a great point that ties into, again, the investment there for maintaining that business continuity.
Absolutely. You know, this being under a pandemic the last year really made everyone question whether or not they could continue business. Can you work anywhere? Can your people work from home versus having to come into an office? Um, Staying in touch, everyone in this virtual world now, I can't tell you how many Teams calls I'm on these days that are all video enabled. I mean, everyone used to just join audio and we were happy with that. And now with everyone being remote, that camera's on almost all of the time. Um, and then there's a lot of work that's been going on with replacing the standalone software. Okay. Bring everything in, have the ability to really monitor and build things out and enable your users. And then, like I said previously, it's not just the features we're adding in. If you're at home, one of the big concerns back in the day was, well, hey, we're reliant on Active Directory. What if Active Directory is down? Okay, well, when you're in the cloud, Active Directory is not down. All right, that Active Directory is there, and even if your site's down, you can go right into Office 365 and add those new users in and start replicating and getting them up and working. Okay. You don't have to go, if you're on an EA, you don't even have to go to a partner. You can just go in VLSC and add yourself another reservation. And in 5-10 minutes, you've got the licenses you need to add those additional users.
So it seems like there's a lot of abilities there that kind of, again, towards our next slide here, that alleviates the IT management that's necessary in the traditional environments.
Yeah. Trying to help IT find their way out of being completely reactive organizations and start becoming more proactive, and freeing them up. So now, you can deploy and manage those endpoints 100% remotely. You don't have to sit there and spend an hour or two building out a laptop or have a conference room set up with 10, 15 laptops out on the tables and running down doing the old sneaker net. Can't tell you how many times I did that when I was an engineer and in help desk work. Being able to manage application deployments, even when we're talking to the mobile devices and everything. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. And containerizing on the devices so people can still have their privacy and not worry about, hey, well, that's not a corporate app, and if I leave, I don't want all of my personal stuff wiped off the device. No, it's just the business side stuff that's in that container. Okay. Being able to take care of all those security and compliance policies, and then also see the Microsoft, secure graph that's out there that's getting trillions of data points entered into it every day, telling us things that's going on around the world, new viruses that are popping up or vulnerabilities, and really going from reactive to proactive. I mean, how many people out there know that Microsoft actually pays bounties to white hat hackers looking for vulnerabilities in our products? Yeah, that's something that we take very seriously. So we're always looking for what needs to be sealed up and figured out. As this the whole pandemic, it wasn't just all of us working remotely. All the people that were bored at home that do things nefariously, the hacking, and I can't tell you myself. I get text messages all the time trying to say, "Hey, your AT&T bill, you overpaid it. You click here to get your refund," or the DMV. The DMV is even sending me texts offering me refunds. They're getting crafty, just looking for that stuff. So really important.
Interesting. So how's this affecting tribes?
It's we've seen an increase over the years. We've had some tribes suffer some pretty big cyber attacks. Last year was extremely busy for us. So as we closed out last year and our year ended at the end of June, there were 298 tribal tenants in the clouds. There's 70,000 tribal employees, and I can actually tell you this is now 78,000 tribal employees on M365 E3. Of those 78,000, 50,000 of those users also have the E5 security layered on. Okay. And then 14,000 have M365 E5 compliance layered on as well. There's 5,000 on E5, and then there's over 65,000 tribal users in the cloud at a mix of different suites and services. Okay. So we've seen a major shift, especially in the last year, going towards security. And if you're not looking at security and you're not considering security in the cloud, I really think you should take a look. There's just so many things that can't be done in the on-premises world anymore, or vulnerabilities and patching in the on-prem world take a lot longer than they do in the cloud.
Sure. And in regards to security, I think that's a great point to kind of discuss about why Microsoft can be trusted for that.
Yeah, one, we're typically in the top 3 fiber networks in the world by size. And then these stats really say a lot. I mean, when you talk about 6.5 trillion threat signals analyzed daily, I mean, that's massive. Okay. 5 billion threats detected on devices every month. There's a lot of these numbers, and some people say, hey, well, that's a lot. Well, as time goes on, all the people that are out there, the nefarious people that are always looking to exploit things, they're always going to try to find something. They're always looking at an angle. They're looking for your internal users to click on emails or links that they shouldn't. How many people out there have the ability to test their end users and send out a quarterly or a monthly test email to see if they're clicking on things and using that as a training opportunity? There's just a lot there, and the only way to really get good at this is to start leaning on the artificial intelligence and then the ability to leverage a secure graph that has this kind of volume of data coming into it and looked at every day to help you keep your environment safer as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think my takeaway from this is just a real demonstration of the sheer amount of investment that Microsoft is putting to protect their clients' data, information, making sure that their environments are secure. I mean, this is just incredible amount of again, the threat signals analyzed every day, right? The devices that have the threats detected. I mean, it's just overwhelming to some extent to really consider how much Microsoft values that security for its clients' environments.
Yeah. And, there's been a couple announcements as to how much money Microsoft is now investing more in our security practice. And, our senior leadership's been at the White House numerous times now, coming up with additional things that we can do to even help the federal government be more secure, because they're now saying they need help improving security.
Sure.
And then, we've got our digital crimes unit. So we're constantly doing this. And this is a public and private partnership. So we do work with local, state, federal law enforcement agencies on helping with investigations and forensics. We will, if they've contacted us and asked for assistance, we will help thwart some attacks as well. So it's pretty impressive. And if we ever get back to being able to do an EBC in Redmond, this has always been one of our fun tours, and taking people through and letting our guests see some of these specialized units, such as the DCU there at Redmond.
It's great. So in this next section, we're going to discuss some of those built-in security features that were previously mentioned, and how the security model has changed from that traditional approach. And by doing that, we're going to compare the traditional legacy type of environment versus the modern day cloud system. If we think about what's included in that traditional data center model that traditionally supports the organization, there's these recurring challenges that each IT staff has to overcome, right? So you're typically thinking about an on-premise environment, which is going to consist of physical hardware, your servers, your switches, your uninterruptible power supplies, etc. So it's therefore susceptible to all the sort of issues that are out of your control, like outages or natural disasters or even sabotage, malicious or unintended. You can build redundancy if possible, but it can be very difficult at times to design or come at a significant cost. Most organizations will deploy some form of data protection or backup, but many solutions are overly complicated or have complicated recovery processes. Speaking from personal experience, in a DR scenario, you cannot afford to have a solution that hinders your ability to restore or recover your data. Access to that data remotely has always been a challenge. As Bill mentioned, most organizations will typically create a VPN access, which, depending on how it's configured, it may not always be the most secure method. I know during the early days of COVID, when people started transitioning to working remote, a lot of organizations out there were in a rush to build some sort of remote access type environment for their clients. And that type of deployment has to have a lot of security measures in place. And when it's under a very short amount of time, it's not always built out to the best of breed. So again, always something to consider. But again, with that type of environment, there might be also remote desktop solutions that require additional hardware or software, which adds to the cost to maintain or operate that on-premise environment, increasing the dependency for 100% uptime. With all this invested hardware, and centralized data, you then end up having to protect it from those outside sources. It usually means that there's additional investment in third-party security-related products or solutions, which therefore means additional hardware or software running in that on-premise environment. You can see that it kind of creates somewhat of a feedback loop. So if we compare that to the modern system that's built in the cloud, you'll see that it's designed for business continuity. It's inherently protected from local issues as the cloud infrastructure is built across multiple data centers that can be located in different regions of the world. Data protection and data backup is made very easy. No need to worry about how much free space is available on that storage appliance, or if you set certain retention policies, are they going to cause you to run out of space in the next year or two and therefore have to buy additional storage capacity as well? Access to that organizational data is made available and easily over the internet and is protected with the use of AI and machine learning, which is built into that security model. So Bill, can you tell us a little bit about how that affects today's reality?
Yeah, it's really come down to a quite interesting situation, and it's not a one shoe fits all thing here, but where do we work? Okay, so from my standpoint here at Microsoft, we're all working remotely. There's very few people that are actually going into the office, but across customers and other businesses, it's really changed. Some people are back in the office, some people are at home, some people are scheduling when they're going to be at a desk. Floor plans have changed significantly. So if I were to go into Microsoft today, I have to reserve a desk and time, and that's it. I can't extend and go past. That's my time, and I'm allowed in that area. And I know there's several other businesses that way. They've done away with a lot of their regular office space and gone to this hoteling space format during this time frame. The tools we use, it's amazing how fast even our IT department is starting to put into place what our product groups have created. Just the other day, I noticed that I can't get to a whole slew of different websites now because they've got CASB turned on and they're controlling where we go and what we're doing. And that's all to minimize those risks and threats that are out there and trying to protect our environment. And then it's how do we do our work? We're all virtual. Everyone at Microsoft and numerous customers have gone and either added cameras to machines or bought brand new laptops that have the cameras and mics and speakers built into them. I've talked to several people that now have Teams room systems in their homes as well on the executive side. So it's really it's a different space. And if you had asked me 2 years ago, we'd be here, I would have said absolutely not. But everyone's doing the best they can and trying to make do. And if anyone has figured some tips and tricks out, share them, because there's a lot of people that are still struggling and what's going to work within their culture and their environment at their business.
So Bill, with all that, it seems like with all the changes happening and them being so rapidly, it seems like there's definitely a change to our strategy that needs to take place.
Yeah, so we've gone to a zero trust, and I know in working with a lot of tribal customers, this has become a very big topic. So Microsoft doesn't trust anything. My laptop, every time I log on to corporate resources, they're checking to see if it's patched. They're checking to see if there's any vulnerabilities, if everything's up to date. If it's not, I'm getting nasty messages popping up on my screen saying you must update. That's even happening on my cell phone. With the new iOS update that just dropped the other day, I got a message telling me I had 24 hours to update or I was getting cut off from corporate resources. So that's across the board, and everyone should be looking at that. You can't trust. We have had tribal members even had an internal resource wreak havoc on the environment. So it's really at a point where it's safer for the environment, your business, and your practice to verify everything explicitly. And then least privilege access. Back in the day when I was a domain admin, we were running around with domain admin credentials and even enterprise admin credentials that we were logging into everything with. We were just conducting our business that way. And that's just not the right way to do it anymore. And I'm not saying have a regular user account and a domain admin account, because if you're not using your domain admin account every day, you don't know if it's been compromised until you go to use it. That's bad. So, you really want to start doing that stuff and always assume you've been breached. Always. I mean, back in the day, it was, you didn't know you'd been breached until 6 to 8 months later. Now people, with the advancements in technology, those that are more advanced are 3 to 6, some even sooner, using all the different products, et cetera. But what can you do to minimize that? So you're always prepping and making modifications that's saying, well, if we're breached, and we probably are breached, how do we stop this, identify it, and prevent it from happening again?
So I think that kind of leads us into, how Microsoft deploys the zero trust model.
Yeah, so identity is at the core of everything. And that's one of the big reasons why our security talks across the board, whether it's logging in from AD to passing credentials to a SaaS app to making modifications to my laptop. Across the board, that identity is looked at. If I'm logged in today and I'm here in Gainesville, Virginia, just 45 minutes west of DC, and in an hour, my credentials are trying to be logged in from, let's just say, China, okay? Microsoft's automatically going to lock my account and contact me, okay? Because that's an impossible travel situation, all right? Even if I were just down the road, or all of a sudden, because we've got artificial intelligence watching and seeing my regular habits of what I'm touching, if all of a sudden I go and I start downloading all of these corporate documents, IT is going to get a flag, because now I could possibly be trying to be the next great Edward Snowden. Okay. So there's all of these things that you really need to think about and take into account as you're doing this. All right. It's a little bit of a repeat of the last one, but if you've got domain admins that have standing credentials, seriously think about going into the cloud and dropping down to least privilege, and then using PIM, privileged identity management, and they submit a request to have their credentials elevated for what they need to do for a certain amount of time, and let them do it, and then lock it right back down.
So essentially, Microsoft 365 is a zero trust platform, correct?
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about, again, I had mentioned in the traditional environments versus the cloud environments, some of those third-party additional tools or security products that are needed. This is somewhat of a demonstration of what that type of environment would look like with all those bolted on security products.
Yeah, and what's nice is this actually kind of shows, even with all those bolted on products, the holes, because they're bolted on and they're not all talking to each other 100%, how nefarious actors can still get through.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of where, again, one of my takeaways from this diagram here is how each one of those products, they're going to focus on the specifics of what they're designed to do. Right. So if take Okta, for example, in terms of an MFA product. That's explicitly what it's going to do, right? So it's checking the accounts, it's trying to verify identity, but it by itself is not going to provide some of the other functionalities that these other products have. So they're all siloed by themselves. So that's what creates these gaps in between these different systems, right? So I think, kind of moving into this next slide here, you can really see how Microsoft provides a security platform that provides that overlapping cross-domain security platform where it's not just one product doing one thing. It's many products kind of overlapping with each other to ensure that there's no gaps in between themselves.
Yep.
So at this point, one of the things that we'll talk about is Microsoft 365 Defender. This is Microsoft's best-in-breed threat protection portfolio, which includes point products to cover security for those critical components of that modern workspace. Microsoft 365 Defender's kind of gone through a rebranding as of late, but it's comprised of these 4 core components. That's going to be your Microsoft Defender for Identity, Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Office 365, and Microsoft's Cloud App Security. Microsoft Defender for Identity uses Active Directory signals and Microsoft's cloud intelligence to protect against identity-based threats, those compromised and malicious users, and protect against lateral movement across your systems. Microsoft Defender for Endpoint is going to be that protection platform that provides everything from prevention to detection, investigation, and response and risk mitigation for your endpoints. Cloud App Security, that's going to be the platform that's able to detect unusual behaviors across those cloud apps to identify ransomware or compromised users. Bill's example of somebody coming in, downloading a lot of files, that's unusual and abnormal behavior, right? So that ability to be able to detect those types of activities and be able to stop them before they actually occur. And then there's Microsoft Defender for Office 365, which offers the threat protection across email and other collaboration tools like Microsoft Teams or SharePoint Online, OneDrive for Business, and other Office clients. Microsoft 365 Defender brings the best of breed products together into one powerful cross-domain full protection stack that deeply integrates signals and capabilities for end-to-end experience protecting the organization's network. So let's discuss some of the considerations when choosing the right subscription for your organization. So one of the first things to do is to evaluate the subscription based on what the organization needs. Within Microsoft 365, there's many different licensings, as we saw in the previous matrix, but we'll try to make that simpler by discussing and focusing on some of the most common and best valued licenses. This will include the Microsoft 365 Business Premium license, which comes with that familiar Microsoft Office applications suite. But it also includes advanced cyber threat protection and device management, as we previously discussed. It's best for organizations that are under 300 users. There's also the M365 E3 license, which also includes many of those same apps and features as Business Premium, in addition to increased capacity for even more business-focused apps and added security and compliance capabilities. The next step up is going to be that M365 E5 license. It's going to include everything that's in the E3 or Business Premium license, but it's going to come included with what we can call the mini suite of licenses, which includes the Microsoft 365 E5 Security or E5 Compliance. We'll dive into those a little bit deeper, but again, just wanted to kind of discuss the licenses that we'll be covering today. So we have put together a short list of questions to help you try to identify some of those deciding factors about your organization that would help guide you to choose between the different licenses out there. We'll come back to these questions in a moment after we break down the licenses, but keep them in the back of your mind as we review what's included in those recommended licenses. So questions like, how many employees are in your organization? Do your users work remotely, need access to on-prem resources? Do you want the ability to manage your endpoint or devices in the cloud? Users, do they require Exchange mailboxes larger than 50 gigs or OneDrive storage greater than a terabyte? Are you concerned about advanced cyber threats or ransomware or phishing emails targeting your employees with malicious links and attachments? Something I know that's on the trend right now. Do you manage sensitive business and customer information or work in a regulated industry such as healthcare, financial services, or legal services? Again, just kind of consider these questions, think about your environment. We'll come back to them, but I think based off of these, it should help guide that discussion. So let's jump into the licensing breakdown and help try to discuss what you need to know. So the first license we'll talk about, again, Microsoft 365 Business Premium. This particular license is going to come with the core Office apps that everybody knows and loves, the Microsoft Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams, Publisher, and Access. But it also comes with a couple of other features that are included. So for example, it comes with Exchange Online Plan 1, which is going to give your users those mailboxes of 50 gig, of sizes of 50 gigs, and the ability to create custom domains. It's going to come with OneDrive for Business, which is going to provide your users up to 1 terabyte worth of cloud storage. It's also going to come with the ability to leverage Azure AD for cloud identities, syncing your on-premise traditional Active Directory to the cloud and leveraging authentications there as well. It's also going to come with your collaboration tools such as SharePoint. Again, there's storage that's provided based on every license that's allocated. It's going to come with Intune. So again, that device management ability. Intune is going to give you the ability to enroll them into Microsoft Endpoint Manager, create policies and configuration profiles, all the things that you need to do in order to manage those devices, whether they're mobile, Windows, Mac, you name it, all of that type of functionality. It's also going to come with Azure Virtual Desktop capabilities. So if you do have an existing type of RDS environment, remote desktop services, you can build out an Azure Virtual Desktop environment, and this particular license will give your users that ability to subscribe to that service. It's also going to allow the ability to have Azure information protection. So again, if you have that type of data within your environment that you need to be able to classify, add tags or any sort of compliance or regulatory processes to it, you can have that functionality with this. So again, Microsoft 365 Business Premium is going to be that baseline license that really covers most of the core functionality and services provided by Microsoft. The next license to talk about is Microsoft 365 E3. So this is going to be the next step up. It's going to contain a lot of the same functionalities and features as Business Premium, but it's going to come with additional capacity. So for example, it's going to come with the Exchange Online Plan 2. So that's going to add the additional storage capabilities within your Exchange mailboxes, as well as those custom domains. It also comes with unlimited archiving as well, just to note. It's also going to include the OneDrive for Business Plan 2, which will provide unlimited storage for those users to store documents in the cloud. Another feature that it comes with is going to be the Windows 10 Enterprise Device Guard and Credential Guard that Bill had referenced earlier. So again, if you're looking to have increased advanced security features for your devices, not only are you going to be able to manage them with Intune, but additional security features are available to you as well. Another inclusion is going to be the information protection and security management with that data loss and retention policy abilities. Another feature that I'll mention, or at least a platform, is the work management capabilities that are provided through some of those additional applications that come with E3. So you're going to get the Microsoft Planner for users to be able to manage their tasks or projects that they're working on. Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, all the tools that you need to be able to automate any of those business workflow processes that you might have in your organization. And what's really great about it is that those tools or those applications allow you to really build these things out without having to know a lot of coding skills. It's point, click, build, develop. There's certain classes that I've seen a app in a day type thing that I've participated in the past, not knowing anything about app development, but taking that after a few hours, was able to build out a pretty complex and sophisticated automation process for the organization. So again, real low hanging effort kind of deployment via the Power Apps and Power Automate. The last license I'll discuss is the Microsoft 365 E5. So this is going to be the license that includes a lot of the features that I've previously mentioned, but it'll also contain that mini suite of licenses, the M365 E5 security and M365 E5 compliance. Those specific mini suites are going to contain some of the smaller licenses of like Microsoft Defender for Office Plan 2. So that's going to provide that automated investigation response capabilities to protect against cyber attacks. It's going to include threat intelligence and the ability to track activities or events within your organization, and be able to provide comprehensive attack simulation training that you can custom build to train your users. There's also the inclusion of Azure AD Plan 2, which includes the ability to deploy privileged identity management and risk-based conditional access to govern and protect your sensitive information and data, something that Bill touched on earlier. There's also the ability to build rule-based automatic retention policies. So again, if you're an organization that has a lot of sensitive information and you're looking for the best ways to try to protect it, these are the tools that you can leverage. The ability to provide records management or insider risk management with information barriers, customer lockbox, and privileged access management. All of these features are included within the Microsoft 365 E5 license. I will call out that it also includes Power BI Pro for your data analytics or reporting capability, as well as the Microsoft audio conferencing capabilities for Teams. Bill, I think there were some upcoming changes down the pipe that you could possibly speak on about that.
Yeah, so March 1st of 2022, audio conferencing is actually going to get added to several different suites. So the Office 365 E3 suite, the M365 E3 suite, it will be on with the business standard plan, I believe. There's a couple others. So there will be a small increase on the pricing come March 1st. So any of the renewals that occur March 1st or after, or new EAs that are stood up, will have that new pricing, and it will include those features for your users.
Right. I'm sure with a lot of the recent changes with work remote and things of that nature, it's sort of created a trend where people are looking for that service. So they're just including it into those other plans as well.
That's right. It's been a big demand over the last year.
Well, again, these are just a few of the features that are included in these suites. But again, if your organization is looking for that comprehensive security and compliance features, M365 E5 is going to have everything that you're looking for. So again, kind of circling back to those 6 questions from earlier, again, after looking at the licenses and what's contained within them, there are some answers provided in here. There's a copy of this that will be provided out to everybody. I think it's actually located in chat. But again, there's a lot of information to cover, but hopefully these questions will kind of help navigate you into which license would best suit your environment based on that answer. There were a few questions I did want to stop and possibly chat about real quick. And again, I think the first one, how many employees are in your organization? I think it's pretty clear that if you're under that 300 employee or user threshold, that business premium license is going to be that baseline or standard license that would apply for all the features that you're looking for. If you're over the 300 user or employee threshold, that's where you're probably going to end up in that Microsoft 365 E3 license or E5, depending on the features that you're looking for. One of the other questions, let me go back. One of the other questions that I wanted to talk about was, do you want to manage your endpoints from the cloud? I think, Microsoft 365 Business Premium, E3 and E5 all come with Microsoft Endpoint Manager and Intune, which will allow you to organize or allow your organization to be able to remotely manage those devices through, configuration profiles, application deployment profiles, compliancy profiles. E5 specifically will come with an add-on license for Defender for Endpoint. So that's going to be that platform that provides that endpoint detection and response platform to combat those cyber attacks. So depending on the level of protection or investment that you want to have in being able to protect your environment, all 3 are great choices. E5 is going to have that additional feature set for you. And then last one, are you concerned about those advanced cyber threats such as ransomware, phishing emails, targeting your employees with malicious links or attachments? Business Premium comes with Microsoft Defender for Office, which includes that sophisticated malware or phishing and ransomware protection. But Microsoft 365 E5 comes with Defender for Office Plan 2. So that's going to provide that automatic investigation response capabilities. And as I mentioned before, it's going to allow you to have that comprehensive attack simulation training that you can custom build to train your users. So I know a lot of organizations out there in the past have looked for third-party products where they can send out their own phishing emails to their users, see who clicks on the link, build campaigns, try to educate their users. Microsoft has that capability. And again, that's located within that Defender for Office Plan 2, which is built into the E5 licensing. So, Bill, can you tell us a little bit about the pricing and how organizations can get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, everyone, this pricing doesn't reflect the level D discount. And one of the reasons we did that is just to keep this simple. So if you already have an enterprise agreement, okay, and you want to step into the cloud, you're going to want to work with your partner on record and our commercial executive, Marquette Hovan, and the account team, because what we're going to do is make sure you get credit for the components that you've already purchased. So if you were going from your Office suite on-prem into Microsoft 365 E3, one, it wouldn't be $32. You'd have the 10% discount right off the bat because federal status. Okay. And then 2, we would discount it further so that you're not paying for something you've already paid for. We're going to give you credit for those other things. Okay. So that's across the board. Another thing to note here is that Microsoft 365 Business Premium or Business Standard is not available to be put on an enterprise agreement. Okay, so that's something you'd have to talk to your reseller about. They may offer an open agreement, or through the portal, you could put it on a credit card and have monthly charges against it that way. But just make sure you reach out to us and talk, and understand it's not just these suites. You could easily say, hey, M365 E3 looks great, or G3 because I want to be in the government community cloud instead of the commercial. But I'd really like to talk to you guys about adding only the E5 security components. I don't need the full E5 suite, but just those security components. Those are all conversations we can absolutely have. And then if you need assistance in deploying them, you know, we've got great partners that will jump in there and help you. Arctic IT has been doing it with a lot. We've got numerous partners out there that are doing this, and it really makes a big difference when you're dealing with someone that's very familiar with this and can help you get it done properly.
Great. Well, I know we've covered quite a bit in a short amount of time, and there's certainly more that can be covered in deeper detail. And that's where I'd like to mention that this is one of the many areas that Arctic IT can be of assistance. A little bit about Arctic IT. We're proud to say that we're partnered with tribes for over 15 years. Our client experience extends over 90 tribal entities across the United States. We specialize in technology for tribal governments and casinos. We're an Alaskan Native corporation owned by Doi Unlimited. And lastly, we're a Microsoft Gold partner, which means that only about 5% of firms that work with Microsoft hold this designation. And we're the go-to partner for anything that's related to the tribal space. Before we head to the QA portion, I do want to give a friendly reminder that we have 3 other exciting and informative webinar sessions coming up. So be sure to register or sign up so that you can join us for the rest of our Road to TribalNet series. And with that, I'll leave the floor open for any questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Justin and Bill. That was a great presentation. We do have a couple questions that I pulled from the chat over here. The first one comes from our friend Herb Kraft, and he says, Bill mentioned business standard. Is that a different level than business premium?
Yes, it's lesser.
Yeah, it's business standard is going to come with less functionalities than what's included in the business premium. Again, there's a lot of overlap with the business premium, but I think for the most part, your business premium, as I stated, is going to be that baseline level of functionality and applications. I think if you're looking for, again, scenarios where users only work on web browsers, they don't need to install the application. That's where the web versions of the applications are available. But with your business premium, again, users would be able to install Office apps on up to 5 different devices. So I think that's one of those where you kind of have to evaluate what your user population does, who needs what services or applications or features. Again, start with business premium as a baseline and then kind of move up or down based off those user scenarios.
Perfect. Thank you. And then the next question comes from Chad Sharp, and he was wondering, is there an option for M365 E3 plus security?
Yes, absolutely.
Yep.
Okay.
You can also combine it with the M365 E5 compliance as well. So again, that's one of those mini suite licenses that's built into the M365 E5 license. But if you're looking for specific functionalities of E5 security or specific functionalities of E5 compliance, you can kind of add them onto a standard E3 license to gain that functionality for more of a cost-effective approach to the services that you're looking for. But again, if there are features as opposed or a part of both of those mini suites, then it's always going to be more cost-effective to just look at the E5 licenses.
Yep. And Leslie, I saw that there was a question about CMMC and DFARS. If anyone has questions on that, feel free to reach out. We've worked with numerous other federal contractors in your space and helping them get sorted out. And we can cover the differences in the clouds and the minimum requirements that you need to hit on to meet those. So feel free to reach out directly. Microsoft does have some webinars that we're doing on that, and we can work with TribalWise and see if we can get something planned out too.
Perfect. Yes. Thanks for addressing that, Bill, because I wrote it down and I was going to present that to your guys' teams once we wrapped up. So thank you.
Absolutely.
And then I did just want to mention too that there was some questions about if this recording was going to be offered for everyone to view afterwards, which yes, it is. And then copies of the slides will also be sent out to everyone as well. So those will be handy for you guys after the webinar. And then another question that we had was, can I combine licensing options for my team?
Combine licensing options?
Yes.
So there's numerous different things you can do. So, if you were a casino, at the casinos, you've got your frontline workers. Well, you don't want to put an information level worker license on a frontline worker. So there's the M365 F3 license that would take care of those frontline workers, and it's a fraction of the M365 E3 license. Okay. You can have users that have M365 E3. You can have users in your organization that also have M365 E5 throughout. Okay. There are some features within the M365 E5 suite that get enabled across the entire tenant. So there's a couple policies that you have to put in place to firewall those off from covering everyone, unless you did something like adding in the M365 to those M365 E3 users, you add E5 security. Well, now those features, that's something you don't have to firewall off. Okay. And it's just a couple policies that you'd have to put in place. But we have a lot of customers in your space that do a mix match of license type per user group. It's not, you don't want to assign the same thing to everyone. So we can definitely work through, and Justin can help explain and really help you architect towards that user-based license assignment.
Yes, yeah, I totally agree with that. That is one of those early conversations that I typically have when I'm discussing things with our managed service clients, where it's not so much of how many licenses do I need. It's, well, what do your users need? What type of user groups do you have, and how do we silo them so that, again, each group of users gets the appropriate license that facilitates whatever their function is within the organization. So like you said, if there are certain types of employees where they only need certain resources and they don't really need much else and they don't have a device, then yeah, maybe those frontline worker, the F3 licenses would be a great choice. Whereas if you have your executive teams or your higher ups that really, from a security perspective, we need more advanced feature sets to make sure that they're protected because they're bigger targets, then that's where, again, you could combine those E5 licenses to provide those functionalities to them. So there is really a discussion and conversation about what are those different user groups within your organization, and then how do we apply the necessary licenses that gives them what they need.
Did that answer the question? Do you want to use the chat window to let us know if that hit the mark or not?
Yep. And if anyone has any other questions you want to ask Justin and Bill, go ahead and drop those in the chat now as well. Looks like we have one last one that we want to go over, which is, what licensing will give me the most built-in security functions?
M365 E3 plus the E5 security. That will give you all of the security features you need for the modern workplace side. And then I would tell you, you might want to consider looking at Azure Sentinel if you're looking for a SIEM solution to monitor the overall environment. Okay. And if you're one thing we didn't touch on, but the Defender for Endpoint, that's not just for your laptops and desktops. You can actually deploy that out to your servers as well. And that doesn't have to just be Windows servers. That can go on Linux servers as well. Okay, so that is something that will cover across the board, and it's the same thing for Mac. So if you've got Mac devices in your environment, you can put that Defender for Endpoint on those as well. All right, so let us know what your specific requirements are, and we'll help map out exactly what you need to get you the most. Okay, and it's a perfect time to be doing this. We'll really make sure you understand everything. We've got some great resources that can go real deep and talk about everything and help you get there.
Great, thanks, Bill. Okay, so it looks like that's all the questions. Is there any last closing response from Justin or Bill that you would like to say to the audience before we close this out?
Sure. Yeah. Just want to again thanks everybody for the time and joining us today to go over some of the Microsoft 365 licenses and again discussing what's right for your tribal organization. My name is Justin Bryant with Arctic IT.
Thanks, everyone. This is Bill Barkovic again from Microsoft. It was really, really good to have as many of you on here as possible, and then the questions. Please feel free to follow up with us.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining us. Again, my name is Leslie, and I am showing up on behalf of TribleWise. And I just want to say thank you again to Arctic IT and Microsoft for joining with us to do this Road to TribleNet series. It's always a pleasure to have you both come on. And I just want to make note of a couple of webinars that we have coming up in September. So the next one is next week, and we're going to be presented with information from Amplifund. And then we have a couple more coming up in September. Another one from Convergent One on the 28th. Then Arctic IT is back with number 2 in the series on September 30th. And then the other 2 are in October. So head out to TribleWise.com and make sure that you're registered for all those events. And as always, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time. Have a great day.